Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya. Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale. Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yutapada Kamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavansha. Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Dunatam Vitantam Sachiva. Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva. Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakamitacha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagat. Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari. Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripi. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vya Evacha. Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum bhete girim yat kripa tamaham bande. Sri Gurun Dinataranam Ramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Hare Krishna. So welcome to all the devotees present this morning for our Bhakti Shastri class. So today we are start to discuss about the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. The chapter entitled Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness. Yeah. So this part of the Bhagavad Gita is the third section, which is dealing with Jnana Yoga. Yeah. As all of us know, that the first 6 chapters dealing with the Karma Yoga, the middle 6 chapters dealing with Bhakti, and then the last 6 chapters dealing with Jnana, meaning that how through Jnana one can cultivate Bhakti. Yeah. Actually, the Bhagavad Gita is known as the Yoga Shastra. Yeah. Yoga Shastra means that scripture which is dealing with yoga, connection with Krishna. So practically speaking, throughout the Bhagavad Gita, we will see only Bhakti, Bhakti, and Bhakti. Yeah. But what is most prominent in the first 6 chapters, Krishna talks about karma. Therefore, Krishna explained the yoga ladder, yeah, starting from karma kanda and then to karma yoga, and ultimately to niskama karma. So how through karma one can develop bhakti. So similarly, in this section, Krishna will explain how through jnana, yeah, one can develop bhakti. So in particular, this 13th chapter, the 13th chapter started by Arjuna's question. So he will be asking about 6 things here in the beginning of the chapter. He will ask about what is Prakriti, Purusha, etc., etc. or the knower of the field, etc. And then he will talk about Jnana. He will ask about Jnana and also Gyeya. Gyeya means the object of knowledge. So starting from the verse number 2, Lord Krishna gives the answer to Arjun, and not only giving the answer, but Krishna also explained about the unity, the unity between Purusha and Prakriti. And toward the end, Krishna will explain about the Jnana Chakshusha. What is the vision of a person who has Jnana or spiritual knowledge? So that is the synopsis of this chapter. We will start our discussion. So the chapter 13 entitled Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness. In the third 6 chapters, Krishna discusses how jnana leads to bhakti. Starting with the 13th chapter, how the living entity comes in contact with material nature and how he is delivered by the Supreme Lord through the different methods of productive activities, cultivation of knowledge, and devotional service are explained. So 1 to 7 will discuss about kshetra and kshetragya, the field and the knower of the field. Yeah, the body refers to the field, and then the kshetragya. There are 2 types of kshetragya. Yeah, the jiva and the paramatma, Krishna. And text 8 to 12 is discussing about the process of knowledge. Yeah, Amanita, about Adam Beton, starting from there, starting from humility. Yeah, knowledge start from humility. Okay. So 1 to 7 in chapter 12, verse 7, Krishna has promised to redeem his devotees. To that end, he will now declare the knowledge needed to elevate his devotees to the material world. Arjuna asked Krishna to explain 6 topics. Yeah? Prakriti, Purusha, Kshetra, Kshetragya, Jnana, and Gyeya. Krishna explains knowledge of the field of activities and the knower of the field. Text number 1 and 2. Yeah. Arjuna said, "Oh my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field, and the knower of the field, and of knowledge and the object of knowledge." Immediately Krishna answered, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "This body, O son of Kunti, is called the field, and one who knows this body is called the knower of the field." Srila Prabhupada explained, Arjuna was inquisitive about Prakriti, Purusha, Kshetra, Kshetragya, and knowledge and the object of knowledge. When he inquired about all this, Krishna said that this body is called the field, and that one who knows this body is called the knower of the field. This body is the field of activities or the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul is entrapped in material existence, and he attempts to lord it over material nature. Now, starting the 13th chapter, how the living entity comes into contact with material nature and how he is delivered by the Supreme Lord through the different methods of productive activities, cultivation of knowledge, and the discharge of devotional service are explained. Although the living entity is completely different from material body, he somehow becomes related. This is also explained. So here is clear actually. What is kshetra? Kshetra refers to the field, yeah, the field of activities, which is the material body. And then the knower, there are 2 types of knower, yeah, the jiva and the living, the jiva, who is the living entity, and then the Paramatma, yeah, Krishna. But here is the difference. The jiva has limited knowledge about his own field. Yeah. For example, when we sleep, yeah, we sleep, and then the next morning we sleep at night. Next morning, somehow or other, we find that our hair is growing, our nail is growing. Yeah, we don't realize how it's happened. Suddenly, oh, after 2 or 3 days, your mustache is growing, so you have to shave up. So although we know what is going on within our own body, but we don't really know completely. Yeah. For example, there is disease. We get sick. Why we go to doctor? Because we don't really know what is going on with the body. Therefore, we need doctor to examine our body. If we know what is our disease, then we know how to treat it. Yeah? Just like when we eat food, as soon as it goes down through the throat, we don't really know what is going on. Okay, theoretically we know, right? We study in the school about biology, how the food get digested. But do we really care? Do we really realize? Do we really know what is exactly going on? No, we don't know. So that's the proof actually, although the jiva is also etc. gya for his own field, but his knowledge is very, very limited. Therefore, Krishna, the next verse will say that Kshetra Gyacha Pimam Vidi Sarva Kshetresu Bharata. Krishna says that I'm also the knower of the field, but Sarva Kshetresu. Krishna not only know about my body, but he knows about everybody's body. Yeah. And his knowledge is complete. He knows everything, what is going on. But our knowledge about our body is limited. And I don't know what is going on in your body. So that's also restricting our knowledge. So we are the knower of the etc. of the field, but in a smaller scale compared to Krishna. Yeah, here it is. Text number 3. Krishna says, Kshetra gyam chapi mam vidi sarva kshetresu bharata. Kshetra gyayor gyanam yathaj gyanam matam mama. O sons of Bharata, you should understand that I'm also the knower in all bodies. And to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion. So this is knowledge. When we can differentiate between the matter and spirit. Yeah, this is called Samkhya. Yeah. Samkhya means to analyze, yeah, the body and the soul. Therefore, in chapter 7, Krishna explained what is complete knowledge. Complete knowledge means to know both material and spiritual. This is called the para and apara. So that is complete knowledge. Purport: the individual may be the knower of his body, but he is not in knowledge of other bodies. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is present as a super soul in all bodies, knows everything about all bodies. One who doesn't understand the field of activity and the knower of activity is not in perfect knowledge. One has to understand the position of Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer of nature, and Ishvara, the knower who dominates or controls nature and the individual soul. Yeah. So the point of this verse is that the soul can only imperfectly know his own body. The supreme soul, super soul, has complete and perfect knowledge of all bodies. So that is the difference. Yeah. So remember two types of kshetragya. Up to this point, Krishna answers, elaborating about two things. Yeah, kshetra and kshetragya. Kshetra refers to the body, kshetragya refers to the jiva and the Paramatma, Sri Krishna himself. But the difference is that we have limited knowledge and Krishna has complete knowledge. Text 4 and 5, yeah, text 4. Now please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it produce, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what his influencers are. So here more elaboration about the kshetragya. Srila Prabhupada says, one just has to understand this Bhagavad Gita directly from the description given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And all this will be clarified. But one should be careful not to consider the Supreme Personality of Godhead in everybody to be one with the individual soul, the jiva. This is something like equating the potent and the impotent. So the point here that Srila Prabhupada established against the Mayavadi philosophy. The Mayavadi thinks that the jiva and the super soul, they can be merged into one. They are non-different. Yeah. So we have to be clear that the kshetragya, the knower of the field, there are two. Yeah, and they are different and cannot be one. Yeah, the jiva and the super soul. Text number 5. That knowledge of the field of activities and the knower of activities described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in the Vedanta Sutra, with all reasoning as to cause and effect. Srila Prabhupada is explaining about the Brahma Pucham Pratishtha. Yeah, this is the 5 stages of Brahman realization. Yeah. The first one is Anamaya, dependence upon food for existence. This is like the consciousness of a child, of a baby. Yeah. And then Pranamoya, after realizing the supreme absolute truth in food, one can realize the absolute truth in the living symptoms or life forms. So this is more pertaining to the defensive nature of the human being. Yeah. Prana means the body, concerning about the body, not only on the level of food, but also start depending. And then Jnanamaya, realization extends beyond the living symptoms to the point of thinking, feeling, and willing. So here, the consciousness is actually raised up, yeah, elevated, much more elevated. Start to think, feeling, and willing. So jnana, he gets the knowledge. And then vijnana is the realization of that knowledge, yeah, in which the living entity's mind and life symptoms are distinguished from the living entity itself. So he starts realizing that he is not the body. That is called jnana. And then anandamaya, this is the realization of the all blissful nature. So when he practiced spiritual life, yeah, after realizing that one is not the body, so one will naturally inquire about the higher realization, yeah, higher knowledge, and then practice spiritual life. So from there, actually, he gets the Ananda Moya. Yeah, Ananda Moya means the happiness pertaining to the soul. Yeah, Ananda Moya from the activities of bhakti. So these are the 5 stages of Brahman realization. Yeah, food like just a baby, small child. Yeah, Pranamaya like animals, depending. Jnana, start to think, cultivating knowledge. Jnana, realizing that knowledge, and Anandamaya. Yeah, he becomes blissful and happy. So here from Surrender Unto Me, I take this quotation. The first 3 stages refers to a living entity trapped in illusion, yeah, meaning the Anamaya, Pranamaya, and Jnanamaya. One who fully identifies with and is limited by his field of activities. In the 4th stage, the Vijnanamaya stage, the living entity realizes himself as eternal spirit, separate from his gross and subtle bodies. This is the platform of transcendental love. Therefore, even the Mayavad is also called transcendentalists, yeah, because they knew perfectly that they are not the body. But that in itself is not enough. And then the Supreme Lord is known as Anandamaya, full of bliss. And in this final stage of consciousness, one realizes and identifies himself as a servant of that supremely blissful Lord. Yeah. In the lecture, Srila Prabhupada said, when our aim of life will be to understand our relationship with Vishnu, that day we do. But we do not know it. We are so much captivated by the external energy, Maya, that the whole program is how to forget Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But our real aim of life is to know our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Nate vidu swartagatin hi Vishnu durasaya. They are trying to become happy within this material world. So somehow or other, as Srila Prabhupada mentioned here, the whole program of the material nature is how to forget Krishna. Yeah. All the advertisement we see in the television, all the advertisement in the street, yeah, just leading us to forgetting Vishnu. Yeah. Nate vidu swartagatim hi Vishnu. Nate means they don't know that the swartagati, the highest goal of life, is Vishnu. Durasaya ye bahiratmani. Andaya Sandai Upaniyamanam Pipisha Tantriam Undam Nivad. So how Prahlad Maharaj is condemning actually the present leaders, that they are blind, and then the society also blind. When a blind society led by a blind leader, so the leader will fall down into the ditch. So automatically the society also will fall down into the ditch. Yeah. Andaya Tandai Upaniyamana. So Andaya, we go down. And then text 6 and 7. The 5 great elements, false ego, intelligence, the unmanifested, the 10 senses, and the mind, the 5 sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, and the aggregate, the life symptoms, and convictions. All these are considered in summary to be the field of the activities and its interaction. So this body consists of 24 components. This world, this body. So here is the breakup. Yeah, the Pancha Mahabhuta. The first one is this 5 gross elements: the earth, water, fire, air, ether. Yeah, Bhumi, Rapo, Nalo, Vayu. And then next 3 is the Mana, Buddhi, and Ahankar. Yeah. False ego, intelligence, unmanifested stage. No, Mana will be separate. Yeah, sorry. So the next 3 is that the false ego, intelligence, and unmanifested stage of the 3 modes of nature. And then there are 10 senses. Yeah, Pancha Buddhindriya and Pancha Karmendriya. So the Pancha Buddhindriya are the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. And then the Pancha Karmendriya, the working senses, the voice, legs, hands, anus, and genitals. And then mind is the next one. Therefore, we have actually 11 senses. The mind is the subtle senses. And then the last 5, the 5 objects of the senses. Yeah, smell, taste, form, touch, and sound. So Srila Prabhupada mentioned the body is the representation of all these factors. And there are changes of the body, which are 6 in number. The body is born, it grows, it stays, it produces byproducts, then it begins to decay, and at the last stage, it vanishes. Therefore, the field is on the non-permanent material things. However, the Kshetragya, the knower of the field, its proprietor, is different. So these are the 4 components of the body, or in general in the material world. Yeah. And these are not eternal. The Kshetra is not eternal, it is temporary. And then the proprietor, or the Kshetragya. Actually, we are not at all proprietor. Yeah. Because after all, everything belongs to Krishna. Srila Prabhupada mentioned, so we may be very proud of advancement of knowledge, but actually we are not yet advanced. So far, material science is considered to understand the basic principle of the moving force, which is moving this body. On account of the presence of the soul, we have got so much intelligence, we have got so much thoughtful, psychological effect, so many things wonderful they are. But as soon as the soul is not there, everything collapses. Yeah. So the etc. without the etc. gya is simply a dead matter. That's what Srila Prabhupada meant to say here. So up to that point, Krishna is explaining about etc. and etc. gya. And then now Krishna will explain about the process of knowledge from text number 8 to 12. Yeah. Having described knowledge of the field and knower of the field, Krishna now explains the process of knowledge beginning with humility and culminating in realization of the absolute truth. Yeah, so this is verses 8 to 12. Yeah. Krishna said from the Amanitva, Adambitva. Yeah, you can see the verse itself. Amanina Manadena. Yeah, we chant the 6 Sakam at 8. So Amani means not expecting any respect. In other words, humility. Yeah. So these are the process of knowledge. Yeah, humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master. Yeah. Cleanliness, saucham, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego. Mhm. The perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease. This is called the uh, when we are realizing actually the birth, old age, disease, and death to be troublesome. Yeah. That is knowledge. Detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest. Even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events. Constant and unalloyed devotion to me. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada will explain in his purport that amongst all this, yeah, this one, constant and unalloyed devotion to Krishna is is the most important. Yeah. But what is very important? Humility is very important. But what is most important? Devotion to Krishna is most important. Yeah. Why humility is very important? We'll see later. Aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization, and philosophical search of the absolute truth. All this I declare to be knowledge. Besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance. Yeah. So these are the processes of knowledge that Krishna mentioned. And whatever apart from this is actually considered to be ignorance. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada's purport. This is actually the means to get out of the entanglement of those elements. Yeah, those 24 elements. Yeah, that we discussed in the previous verse. The embodied soul is entrapped by the body, which is a casing made of the 24 elements. And the process of knowledge are described here is the means to get out of it. Of all the description of the process of knowledge, the most important point is described in the first line of the 11th verse. Yeah. Mayi chananya yogina bhaktir avyabicharini. Yeah. The process of knowledge terminates in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord. So if one does not approach or is not able to approach the transcendental service of the Lord, then the other 19 items are of no particular value. You see? So there are 20 items of knowledge here described by Krishna. Yeah. And Srila Prabhupada explained all these items, all these 19 items should be culminate in the unalloyed devotional service. Bhaktir Avya Bicharani, Krishna mentioned. Bhaktir Avya Bicharani means pure devotional service to Krishna. Yeah. Because simply by having all these qualities without devotion is also useless. Yeah? Dharma sonustita pumsam vishwakshana katasuyaha notpadadi yadi ratim sama eva kevalam. So na utpadyate. Na utpadyate means not uh, invoking our attraction to Krishna. Rati means the attraction. Any qualities, any activities which is not actually helping us to become more attracted to Krishna, then it's just simply a waste of time. Srama evahi kevalam. So Srila Prabhupada mentioned the most important thing is to cultivate pure devotional service to Krishna. But how this knowledge start? It's actually start from the first one, amanitva. Yeah, humility. Without humility, one can never get any knowledge. Yeah, because when you approach a person, a bona fide spiritual master, you have to become humble. Yeah, just like I think I gave an example before. Imagine that I have two glasses now, two cups now. Yeah, two cups. So one is empty, one with the water. So this empty cup should lower its position in order to get water from the cup which is filled up with water. If this empty cup put its position higher, when this cup with the water pouring the water, so this cup will remain empty. So that's the principle here, humility. When we approach a spiritual master, we have to be humble. Yeah? We have to be humble. The moment we think that, yes, I know, then whatever knowledge, whatever things that he said, is actually will not be uh, perceived by us. Yeah. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was mentioning one time that when Srila Prabhupada says something, of course he said so many things, and then Tamal Krishna Maharaj just giving the response, yes Prabhupada, I know. Yes Prabhupada, I know. Yes Prabhupada, I know. And then Prabhupada just yelled at him, you said you know, you think you know everything. Yeah. So yeah, when you are in the front of the spiritual master, you should pose him. You should pose yourself as a full number one. Yeah, that's Srila Prabhupada's statement. Yeah, in the front of the spiritual master, you have to pose yourself as a full number one. Although you know so many things, it doesn't mean that you should act silly or you should act stupidly. No, but you should remain humble in the front of the spiritual master. Yeah. Another example also, like one time His Holiness Bhakti Swami. So he was one of the greatest book distributor in our movement in the early days. So one day, Tamal Krishna Maharaj wanted to bring him to Srila Prabhupada and to report, uh, to give the report of his book distribution. So both of them are very excited. They're very excited, especially Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, that, oh, he will meet Srila Prabhupada and then Prabhupada will listen to how many books he distributed. He was so excited. And then both of them entered Srila Prabhupada's room. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was there and he tried to introduce him that this is Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, this is Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. He has been distributing your books and now we want to give the report of his book distribution. So it's happened also in that room of Srila Prabhupada's room. There was one lady, one Mataji, his disciple, was cleaning Srila Prabhupada's room, the desk, and then the floor also. So what's going on here is that Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was reporting his book distribution record achievement. And Srila Prabhupada, in other hand, seems to be not paying attention to both of them. Rather, he was talking with this Mataji. Oh, how are you? How is your family? Is everything all right? So she was cleaning. And then Tamal Krishna Maharaj thought that it seemed that Srila Prabhupada not paying attention to us. And then as soon as they finished the report, so they just offer obeisances and they wanted to walk out from Srila Prabhupada's room. And then just before they went out of the door, Srila Prabhupada yelled at both of them, you think that you are the doer. So Srila Prabhupada yelled, you think that you are the doer. Because Prabhupada could sense actually, yes, they have some sense of proud because, so much book being distributed and they want to get the appreciation from Srila Prabhupada. Of course, Srila Prabhupada will appreciate everything that his disciples, his followers do for him, But when Srila Prabhupada understands somebody has false ego, pride within their heart, Prabhupada would crush them in a way that unexpected with them. Srila Prabhupada said, I heard everything that you read, that report, that book report, he heard, yeah. But why he's paying attention to this Mataji? Just to, crush their false ego, to make them humble. Yeah. And Bhakti Tita Maharaj said that that was the best moment in my life with Srila Prabhupada. Actually, when you get chastised by your spiritual master, that is the greatest mercy. It is not that when your guru smile and praising your service, well, that's also good, that means he's satisfied. But when you get the chastisement, that's even better, because the spiritual master rectify your mistake. Yeah, rectify your mistake. Another example, like Harikesh Maharaj also. Yeah, Harikesh Maharaj was chastised by Srila Prabhupada with hot chapati. You heard that story? That Srila Prabhupada, Harikesh Maharaj happened to be Srila Prabhupada's servant. So he cooked lunch for Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada ring his bell. That means now time for chapati. First, rice and dal is served, and then chapati and sabji is served. At last, Prabhupada would ask for some sweet. So now Maharaj brought rice and dal, and then next sabji and chapati. So rice and dal is finished. Prabhupada ring his bell. That means bring the chapati inside. So Harikesh Maharaj said, Prabhupada, today somehow I could not make the chapati. Prabhupada asked, why? Oh, the stove is like this, it's not fitting, and then we don't have this facility that us. And Prabhupada said, really? He said that yes. And then Prabhupada just got up, washed his hand, washed his mouth, and he entered the kitchen. So he started taking the flour, he started squeezing the flour, making the dough. He squeezed like really make the dough very, very soft. And then after that, he made the balls and then start rolling. And then he burned the chapati and it just popped perfectly. And Prabhupada said to Harikesh Maharaj, you see, what is the difficulties? It's so easy. And then Srila Prabhupada took this hot pop chapati and just smashed his face with this hot chapati. We never expect that Srila Prabhupada would do that. The thing here is that because Harikesh Maharaj was complaining, oh, ye nahi hai, oh nahi hai, this is not there, that is not there. It's so difficult, Prabhupada, to make chapati. But Prabhupada with his patient, because the mistake was explained that actually he made the dough hard, not enough squeezing it. So the dough is still hard. So actually when you make chapati, you have to make the dough soft and cover it with wet cloths. Keep it for some time. So the dough will become soft. And when you burn the chapati, it will pop. So he was in hurry. So he made the dough hard, not enough water, not enough squeezing. He rolled, so the result like papadam, yeah, hard. So yeah, when the spiritual master chastises us, that means he gives us his ultimate mercy. He gives us his ultimate mercy because he is willing to rectify our mistake. If he doesn't want to rectify our mistake, that means he doesn't care. But when he chastises, that means he really cares. He really thinks about our well-being. Yeah. So humility is very important. Yeah. I would advise to all of you to read the purport. The purport is quite long, where actually Srila Prabhupada explaining in detail of all these aspects of knowledge. Yeah. So of course I put it up here, but I want you to read it. Everything is here. This is the last part of Srila Prabhupada's purport. Devotional service to Krishna without deviation. Yeah. Means engaging oneself in the 9 processes of devotional service. Chanting, hearing, worshipping, offering respect, etc. As described in the last verse of the 9th chapter. Yeah, Man Manabham Mad Bhaktu lies the last verse of the 9th. That process should be followed. Naturally, when one is adapted to the spiritual way of life, he will not want to mix with materialistic men. That would go against his grains. Prabhupada said, that would go against his grains. One may test himself by seeing how far he is inclined to live in a solitary place without unwanted association. As far as self-realization is concerned, it is clearly stated here that Bhakti Yoga is especially practiced, beginning from the practicing humility up to the point of realization of the supreme truth, the absolute personality of Godhead. This process is just like a staircase, beginning from the ground floor and going up to the top floor. Now, on this staircase, there are so many people who have reached the first floor, the second, and the third floor, etc. But unless one reaches the top floor, which is the understanding of Krishna, is at the lower stage of knowledge. Yeah? So humility is the beginning of knowledge. Yeah? Without humility, there is no hope of getting spiritual knowledge. Srila Prabhupada said in a lecture. So this Krishna consciousness movement, so this is Krishna consciousness movement. Try to understand and follow. Yeah, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So these 20 items of knowledge, this is our process, this is our practice. And Krishna says, whatever apart from this is considered to be ignorance. Yeah. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, Dukkha, Dosha, Anudarsana. So as I mentioned earlier, that when a person thinks or realize that Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi to be dukkha, to be troublesome, yeah, to be troublesome, that's actually knowledge. Sometimes even amongst the devotees also we celebrate birthday, right? I mean, for me personally, I never celebrate my birthday, but I do appreciate the devotees who celebrate their birthday because they invite the devotees having kirtan and serve the devotees with prasadam. That's the good aspect. But normally as devotees, we don't celebrate our birthday. We celebrate only the birthday of Krishna and also the spiritual master, the acharyas. Because when we celebrate our birthday, our consciousness will become self-centered. Everything is about me. Give me all the gift. You know, people will sing to you, "Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you." Is that birthday really happy? It's so painful. You are 9 months in the womb of your mother, in the womb of our mother. Being in the womb is just like we stay in the toilet for 9 months. We eat there, we sleep there, we evacuate there, and the toilet is not flashing. That's the womb of the mother. Yeah, just like a toilet. Warm, yeah. And then as soon as we come out, you know, we are crying. Why crying? Because it is described in the third canto by Kapila Muni, the Kapila Siksha. Because the skin touched by the air, as soon as it's come out, it's so painful. Therefore, the body of the baby who just born is actually reddish, yeah, like burning sensation. So immediately the child cry. When the child cry for the first time, the parents are happy. That means the child is alive. Only at that moment when the child cry, they are happy. The next crying make them to cry. No sleep, this and that. Yeah. So birth is actually so painful. So when we understand that Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi to be dukkha, not only dukkha, but dosha anu dosha means full of defect. Anudarsana means to see. That is knowledge. Yeah. Sometimes we find also the devotees when they're celebrating birthday, they sing this, "May you never take birth again, may you never take birth again." Yes, because we pray that, yeah, this should be your last birth in the material world, because dukkha, dosa, anudarsana. We see that as miserable things. Yeah? So that is knowledge. Yeah. So these are the 20 items of knowledge. Point here is that humility is the beginning of knowledge. Without humility, there is no possibility of getting spiritual knowledge. And this quality, like humility, pridelessness, non-violence, this and that, should culminate in bhakti avya vicharana, as Krishna mentioned, pure. unalloyed devotional service to Krishna, realizing Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of God. Yeah. As Srila Prabhupada mentioned, without this realization, all others, the 19 items of knowledge, considered to be useless. Okay, up to this point, Krishna already talks about kshetra, kshetragya, and jnana. Before we continue our discussion, whether any question or comment, please. Okay, if there is no questions, we shall continue our discussion. Yeah. So now Krishna will explain about Gyayam. Gyayam means the object of knowledge. After describing about knowledge, so now we will talk about Gyayam. From text 13 to 19, about Gyayam, objects of knowledge. And then text 20 to 26 about Prakriti and Purusha. Not only talking about Prakriti and Purusha, answering Arjuna's question, but Krishna giving us a bonus here by explaining about their union, the Prakriti and Purusha. Yeah, text number 13. I shall now explain the knowable, knowing which you will taste the eternal. Brahman, the spirit, beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. Now he begins to explain the knowledge. First the soul and then the super soul. By knowledge of the knower, both the soul and the super soul, one can relish the nectar of life. So this is the object of knowledge. Yeah, we talk about knowledge, and what is the object of knowledge? Is the super soul or Krishna. That should be the main object of knowledge. Yeah, by realizing the super soul, knowing Krishna, as Krishna mentioned here, that actually tasting the eternal. By knowing this, you will taste the eternal. Means we become blissful. The living entities are eternally in the service of the Supreme Lord. This is also confirmed by Lord Chaitanya in his teaching. Swarupa Jiva Hoy Krishnaram Chadas. Therefore, the description of Brahman mentioned in this verse is in relation to the individual soul. And when the word Brahman is applied to the living entity, it is to be understood that he is Vijnana Brahman, Vijnana Brahma, as opposed to Ananda Brahma. Ananda Brahma is the supreme Brahman personality of Godhead. So there are two objects of knowledge here described. Yeah, one is the soul, and the other is the super soul. Yeah, just like the etc. Two types of kshetragya. Yeah? Two types of kshetragya, the soul and the super soul. So the object of knowledge also like that, the soul and the super soul. As Srila Prabhupada mentioned here, we are also Brahman. Yeah, but we are the Vijnana Brahman. That means we are realizing our position to be the eternal servant of the Lord, and that object of love is Krishna. Text number 14. Everywhere are his hand. Something interesting about this verse. Everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes, head, faces, and he has ears everywhere. In this way, the super soul exists, pervading everything. What is interesting about this verse? I'll talk. Yeah. When Advaita Acharya, he found this verse because Advaita Acharya lived in Santipur. So those days, 500 years ago, not even more than 500 years ago, Advaita Acharya actually was born somewhere near the border of Bangladesh. Yeah. And then he moved to Santipur. So in Santipur, most of the people there, they are the Smarta Brahmana Mayavadi. Yeah. They are Mayavadi. And then they always talk about Mayavada philosophy. And this verse that Sarvata Panipadam Tadya, that's how the verse goes. Sarvata Panipadam Sarvato Shiro Mukha, where everywhere is his hand, his legs, his face. Ksishira, everywhere is his head. Mukha, his face is everywhere. Sarvato Shiro, okay? And then this verse is always quoted by the people in Santipur to defeat the personal aspect of the Lord. Yeah. So Advaita Acharya was crying whole night when he found this verse. He was crying whole night. How he can defeat the Mayavadi? If the Mayavadi quoted this, he cannot say anything. You know, everywhere is his head, but you don't see his head. So it's just an imagination. It's just an imagination that actually everything is God. Everything is God's head. Everything is God's head. Everything is God's legs, like this space everywhere. But you don't see it, right? And then that night, when he fell asleep, what happened? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came into his dream. Now, this is happened before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in this material world. Yeah, this is very interesting, described in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Yeah, this is very interesting, described in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in Advaita Acharya's dream before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in this world. And he explained to Advaita Acharya is actually, this verse is talking about the Paramatma. Therefore, his face are everywhere, his legs are everywhere, his hands are everywhere, his heads are everywhere, because the Paramatma is everywhere. And we see Srila Prabhupada translation, he mentioned here, therefore, the super soul. Prabhupada mentioned the super soul. And Srila Prabhupada taking this translation referring to Srila Baladev Vidyabhushana. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushana translate in the same way, mentioning about the super soul. Yeah, the super soul pervading everywhere. And then when Advaita Acharya got this dream, immediately he woke up. And then he started chastising the Mayavadi who are in Santipur. Yeah. So that is the explanation here. Sarvatok Shishirumuko. That means his head, his face are everywhere. That means the Paramatma feature. Yeah. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada mentioned here, in this way, the super soul exists, pervading everywhere. That means the Paramatma is everywhere. And he has his feature, yeah? Like Vishnu. Srila Prabhupada explained. As the sun exists, diffusing its unlimited rays, so does the super soul or the supreme personality of Godhead. He exists in his all-pervading form, and in him exist all the individual living entities, beginning from the first great teacher, Brahma, down to the small ants. The supreme is different from the individual soul. The Supreme Lord can extend his hand without limit. Individual soul cannot. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that if anyone offers him a flower or a fruit or a little water, he accepts it. Yeah, 9.26. If the Lord is a far distance away, how can he accept things? This is the omnipotence of the Lord. Even though he is situated in his own abode, far, far away from earth, he can extend his hand to accept what anyone offers. That is his potency. Yeah? Therefore, his hands are everywhere, although he is remain in the spiritual abode. Yeah? He remain in Goloka Vrindavan. But when somebody offers him something, he extends his hand via the media of Paramatma. That's the explanation here. How his hands are everywhere, because Paramatma is everywhere. Text number 15. The super soul is the original source of all senses. Yet he is without senses. What does it mean here? He is without senses. He is without senses means he is without material senses. Okay, his senses are different. That difference with what we have. He is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time, he is the master of all the modes of material nature. Mama Maya Duradaya Krishna mentioned, this is my energy. The three modes is Krishna's energy, therefore he is the master of the modes of material nature. The Supreme Lord, although the source of all senses of the living entities, that have material senses like they have. So this is the explanation. When Krishna mentioned without senses, that means he is without material senses. Bhagavad Gita also confirmed that when the Lord appears, he appears as he is by his internal potency. He is not contaminated by material energy because he is the Lord of material energy. Although we do not see his head, face, hands, or legs, he has them. And when we are elevated to the transcendental situation, we can see the Lord's form. Due to materially contaminated eyes, we cannot see his form. Therefore, the impersonalists who are still materially affected cannot understand the personality of God. Yeah. So when you don't see, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Yeah. Just like, do you see air? We don't see air, right? But we can feel the air. We can feel the existence of the air. Why we cannot see the air? Because the air has very small molecule particle, which is actually unseen by these eyes. But the air does exist. So similarly, Krishna, the Mayavadi said that God has no form because we cannot see him. Can you show me God? But actually, we cannot see God with these material eyes. But we can see God with spiritual eyes. Ramanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochane. Yeah. In that way, we can see God. Otherwise, not at all possible to see God. Text number 16. The Supreme Truth exists outside and inside of all living beings, and the moving and the non-moving, because he is subtle. He is beyond the power of the material senses to see or to know. Although far, far away, he is also near to all. This is confirmed in the Sri Sopanishad. Yeah. Tadure Tadavantike. That means he's far, but he's also very near. We cannot see or understand with these material senses. Yeah. Na bhavet grahyam indriyahi, meaning that materially contaminated senses cannot understand Krishna. Na bhavet. Therefore, in the Vedic language, it is said that to understand him, our material mind and senses cannot act. But one who has purified his mind and senses by practicing Krishna consciousness in devotional service can see him constantly. Yeah. Therefore, the last part of the discussion of this chapter is about the Jnana Chaksusa, the vision of a person in knowledge. Yeah. He can see Krishna everywhere. This is from Surrender Unto Me, that Krishna described the knowable in text 16 as avigyayam, or unknowable, indicates that the super soul cannot be understood by material senses. Only by hearing with devotion from transcendental source can he be understood. So gyayam means the object of knowledge, yeah, that can be perceived. But here in this verse, Krishna is described as Avijayam, meaning that nobody can understand him. Another name of Krishna is Adhoksaja, meaning that he is so mysterious, meaning that he cannot be perceived by material senses. Therefore, we are advised just try to understand Krishna by hearing about him with devotion. Because hearing will purify our heart, and that's actually the hope by which we can see Krishna's present everywhere. Yeah. With the materially contaminated eyes, contaminated mind, we cannot perceive Krishna. We cannot understand Krishna. Nayam atma pravachanena labhyo na medhayana bahuna srutena. One cannot understand Krishna simply by studying the Vedas also. Unless he develops sense of bhakti, so he cannot understand Krishna. Therefore, here in this verse, he is described as Avijayam, means the unknowable. But that unknowable person will become knowable by devotion. Bhaktyamam avijanati. Number 17. Although the super soul appears to be divided amongst all beings, he is never divided. He is situated at one. He is situated as one. Although he is the maintainer of all living entity, it is to be understood that he devours and develops all. The Lord is situated in everyone's heart as a super soul. Does this mean that he has become divided? No, actually, he is one. The example is given of the sun. The sun at the meridian is situated in its place. But if one goes for 5,000 miles in all directions and asks, where's the sun? Everyone will say that it's shining on its head. So here's the secret, that we think that when the spirit, when the Paramatma is present everywhere, enter into all atoms, into the heart of all living entities, we think that he's being cut into many pieces, small pieces. Yeah. But actually the Paramatma is one. Yeah. He has his own planet known as the Sweta Dweep in this material universe. Yeah. He is the Kshirodakasai Vishnu. So the Paramatma is the Kshirodakasai Vishnu. Then what is the understanding that he enters into all atoms? So his energy is diffuses to every atom, to all directions. And then, because he is absolute, so he himself and his energies, his potency are non-different. Yeah. Prabhupada gave the analogy just like the sun. The sun is situated in one place, but different part of the world can see sun simultaneously and think that only the sun is situated on my head. The sun is situated on my head. But other people 5,000 miles away is also will think like that. The sun is situated on my head. So that's the understanding of how Paramatma spread all over. Yeah. He's one person. He's Kshirodakasai Vishnu, situated in his own planet, Svetadvip, in this material creation. But through his energy, he enters into our hearts. He enters into all atoms. And that's non-different from him. It is not that this person, this Kshirodakasai Vishnu, is being cut into many pieces. Yeah. Text 18 is the source of light in all luminous object, is beyond the darkness of matter and is unmanifested. His knowledge is the object of knowledge, is the goal of knowledge, is situated in everyone's heart. The super soul, the supreme personality of Godhead, is the source of light in all luminous objects like the sun, moon, star. In the Vedic literature, we find that in the spiritual kingdom there is no need of sun or moon, because the effulgence of the Supreme Lord is there. In the material world, that Brahma Jyoti, the Lord's spiritual effulgence, is covered by the Mahat Tattva, the material elements. Therefore, in this material world, we require the assistance of sun, moon, electricity, etc., or light. What is that verse mentioning that in the spiritual world there's no need of sun, moon, light, fire? I forgot how it starts.
Sorry.
Nasa Sanko Napavakaha. That's how it's in the middle. Nasa Sanko Napavakaha Yadgatwana Nivartante Tadhama Paramam Mama. Yeah. So in the spiritual world, there's no need of sun, moon, fire, yeah, to illuminate the spiritual world. Yeah. Because Krishna's body giving the light. Yeah. And then does it mean that the sun does not exist in the spiritual world, or the moon doesn't exist in the spiritual world? It does exist. Otherwise, how Krishna will perform his pastime? During the day, he goes out with the Gopal. During night, he goes out with the gopis. Yeah? But the explanation is that when Krishna mentioned Nasta Sanko Napavakaha, there's no need, meaning they are not dependent on these objects. Yeah, in the spiritual world, they're not depending. But we in the material world, we are totally depending on the sun to get energy, on the moon to nourish the food, yeah, on fire to cook. Yeah? Yes, thank you so much, Rajanath Prabhu. Natad Basayate Suryo Nasasanko Napavakaha. Yeah. So everything which is luminous actually comes from Krishna. The Brahma Jyoti, the sun, the sun, the sunlight comes from Surya Narayan, Chandra, the moon also. Text number 19. Thus, the field of activities, the body, knowledge, and the knowable have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature. See, the kshetra gya, and then jnanam and the gyayam for Krishna is the next part of the discussion. Will touch about the Purusha and Prakriti. Yeah. So the knowable is the object, the gyayam. Yeah. Although, as I mentioned earlier, Krishna is difficult to understand, as Krishna mentioned here. Only my devotees can understand this. That means Krishna reveals himself to the devotees. Yeah. Thus, three items has been described: field of activities, the body, the process of understanding, and both the soul and super soul is. It is especially described here that only the unalloyed devotees of the Lord can understand these three items clearly. Yeah. Some scientists may know something about this, about the etc., this body, yeah, but they don't fully understand about what is going on here. Yeah. Srila Prabhupada mentioned, everything is there in the Bhagavad Gita. You can become fully in knowledge if you read Bhagavad Gita carefully, but you must have the qualification. If you are rascal, nonsense, you cannot understand. This is plain thing. Rascals and nonsense cannot understand Bhagavad Gita. That is the first condition. So why you have selected me, sir? I'm an ordinary military man. So Prabhupada is talking about Arjuna here. I know how to fight. I'm not a Vedantist. Neither I'm a Brahmana. So why you have selected me? Because the spiritual knowledge is meant for the Vedantists and Brahmana. saintly person and sannyasis. I am neither of them. Why you have selected me, Bhaktosi? Because you are my devotee. So that is the qualification of understanding Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. People think that, oh, to study scripture is the only privilege for the Brahmana, for the sannyasi. But everybody should understand the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna mentioned here that I'm a Kshatriya. Why you have selected me to receive this knowledge? Because Krishna said Bhaktosi, because he is Krishna's devotee. And that is the foremost qualification to understand Bhagavad Gita, by becoming Krishna's devotee. Okay. Then now Krishna will describe about Prakriti and Purusha. Yeah. And of course about their union. Text number 20. Material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformation and the modes of matter are products of material nature. So interestingly, Krishna mentioned here that the material nature is also beginningless. Yeah, of course, we know that the jiva is eternal. That means he is beginningless. Yeah, whatever without beginning and whatever without end is considered to be eternal. But material nature also beginningless, without beginning and without end. But what about creation? The understanding here is that material nature or the Prakriti is eternal, but sometimes he manifests, sometimes it's manifest, and sometimes unmanifest. But the Mahat Tattva or the ingredients of the creation is remain eternal, because the Mahat Tattva is actually Krishna's eternal energy. Sometimes manifest from our eyes, sometimes unmanifest. Yeah. Prabhupada explained both material nature and the living entity are eternal. That is to say that they existed before the creation. The material manifestation is from the energy of the Lord. And so also the living entities. Yeah. The living entities are the para-prakriti, yeah, the superior energy of the. But the living entities are the superior energy. Both the living entities and material nature existed before this cosmos was manifested. Material nature was absorbed in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mahavishnu. And when it was required, it was manifested by the agency of Mahat Tattva. Similarly, the living entities are also in him, and because they are conditioned, they are averse to serving the Supreme Lord. Thus, they are not allowed to enter into the spiritual sky. But with the coming forth of material nature, these living entities are again given a chance to act in the material world and prepare themselves to enter into the spiritual world. That is the mystery of this material creation. Yeah. So one time Srila Prabhupada was asking his disciples, so what is the purpose of material creation? And the devotees just kept silent. And Srila Prabhupada said that the purpose of material creation is for us to enjoy. For the living entity to enjoy, to exhibit his propensity to become the enjoyer, to become the controller, to become Purusha up to some extent. But here, Srila Prabhupada explained very clearly that the mystery, the purpose of material creation is to give us a chance to go back home, back to Godhead. How? Through Maya. Maya will kick us in every step. Maya will keep us, will giving us trouble so much in this material world. And we have to finally realize that actually this place is not for me. I'm not belong here. So I have to go back to my origin. First, for our enjoyment. Second, for our rectification. How we enjoy? By exhibiting our propensity as the Purusha. Although by nature we are Prakriti, because we are part and parcel of Krishna, we inherit that nature of being the enjoyer. Second, for our rectification, because we will get so much trouble. Dukkha, dosa, anudarsana, we will see a lot of miserable things. Then, because the nature of the spirit soul is ananda mayo vyasa, that means the nature of the living entity is pleasure seeker. Yeah, pleasure seeker, ananda mayo vyasa, pleasure seeker. Yeah. Ramante yogino nante. Yeah. We always searching after Rama or happiness. Yeah. But we don't find tangible happiness in the material world. And that should lead us to think, I'm not belong to this material world. I'm not belong here. There must be a place where I can be eternally happy, and that is spiritual world. That's our sense developed in that way. Yeah. So the purpose of material creation again and again is to give us the chance to go back home, back to God, through the agency of Maya. Both the living entity and the Lord are changeless and eternal. Only the material nature undergoes vikar or transformation. Although the living entity remains unchanged, out of ignorance, he identifies with the changes of his body. Yeah, the jiva remain the same, but when the jiva gets the body of a dog, hog, human being, demigods, yeah, they consider that they are changing, but actually not. Therefore, Tatra Dehantara Prapti Dhiras Tatra Namuyati. A person who is sober, who understands this, actually the spirit soul remain the same, only the body change, is dhira or undisturbed. Yes, Prabhuji, you raise your hand, you want to ask question, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I just wanted to ask one question here about the material nature. It is mentioned that it is created for us to enjoy as well as to rectify, right? So,
Yeah.
And it is eternal also. In that case, is it we are just it is created just for us to get an opportunity to serve Lord, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Actually, the Purusha, the Prakriti, the material nature is also eternal. Yeah, and it is manifested and unmanifested again for our own benefit. Yeah, to teach us, you know. If not in this creation, we develop sense of, yes, actually we are not belong here. And then we had to sleep for millions and millions of years in the body of Mahavishnu. And then when he creates again, he throws us again here. And just like we may give the same punishment to our child again and again until he understands his mistake. You know, we will not stop giving him the same punishment. But that punishment is actually the manifestation of the love of the parents.
So, Prabhuji, here that is what I was not so clear about. Means we want to serve Lord. That's the reason why we got this opportunity to come to this material world and serve Him, right?
No, we don't want to serve the Lord. That's why we came here. And then by giving the trouble through the agency of Maya to the living entity, Krishna gives us trouble through Maya. And when we understand that actually the moment I don't want to serve Krishna, my life becomes miserable. So that's higher understanding. So what should I do in order to not becoming miserable? By serving Krishna again. So why we are thrown out here? Because we don't want to serve Krishna. That's the reason. We want to be separated from Krishna, enjoying separated from Krishna. But through the agency of Maya, yeah, again I say, through the agency of Maya, Krishna gives us a lot of trouble. And then we will realize, one day we will realize that, yes, the moment I try to stop serving Krishna, my life becomes miserable. So how will I become happy? By serving Krishna again. So that's the mystery of creation, giving us trouble in order to rectify us. Is that clear?
Yeah, because there are two two thoughts which are coming in. One is we have to serve. If we get directly associated with Krishna, means if we go uh, with him, uh, if we merge into him, then it becomes a more like a Mayavadi philosophy, right?
Yeah. And that's actually impossible to merge with Krishna.
That is just impossible. So
Yeah.
we have got a position that we can serve it best to Krishna. That is what my understanding was till now,
Yeah.
but I may be wrong. So.
One time, Srila Prabhupada mentioned in a conversation, he said that if you want to become happy, don't try to become God, but try to become God's servant.
Servant, yes.
Yeah, God's servant. You become happy if you try to become God, because you cannot become God. You will not be happy. Yeah, so the Mayavadi philosophy here is actually being defeated. Yeah, because merging is not at all possible because we have our own eternal individuality.
Correct.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the point why we come here, because we don't want to serve Krishna. But why Krishna give us the opportunity to live in the material world to rectify our rebellious tendency by giving us a lot of trouble through Maya. When we are kicked by Maya in every step, we will understand that actually I'm not belong here. Why I'm suffering? Because I try to separate myself from Krishna. So I have to serve him back. Then only I can become happy. First, in the first place, we want to enjoy. Yes, we can enjoy, but how much we can enjoy? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you,
Yeah.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. All right, we continue. Text number 21. Nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. Yeah. The different manifestation of body and senses among the living entities are due to material nature. There are 8,000,004 lakhs different species of life, and these varieties are creations of the material nature. They arise from the different sensual pleasures of the living entity who does desire to live in this body or that. When he is put into different bodies, he enjoys different kinds of happiness and distress. Srila Prabhupada mentioned here, he enjoys happiness and distress, meaning he deserves to get happiness and distress according to his own will. Yeah, according to his own will. If one acts just like Srila Prabhupada went to Hawaii, he was on the beach, so he saw that people are surfing. Srila Prabhupada said in the next life they will become a shark, they will become a fish. Actually, nobody wants to become animal in the next life, right? But our tendency in this life is actually an indication what we want to be in the next life. Some people love to eat raw meat. Like in Japan, you know this food called sushi. This sushi is made of raw octopus, raw fish. Yeah, some people love to eat raw meat. So in the next life, they will become tiger, they will become lion, they will become animal which is eating raw meat. So nobody wants to become a dog, right? In the next life. But if you behave like a dog in this life, that is a clear indication that Krishna give me the body of a dog by which I can enjoy and suffer. When a pig eats stool, he's very happy. But from our vision, eating stool is very horrible. Yeah. But he enjoys that. The pig enjoys eating stool and being in the dirt. Yeah, that is his enjoyment. That is their enjoyment, the pig's enjoyment. Of course, when we get human form of life, we don't want to become a pig. But if we maintaining a dirty life, yeah, and Krishna will give us the big body in the next life. That is an indication. Yeah. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada mentioned he enjoys, living entities enjoys happiness and distress. For us, to eat stool is distress, but for the pig is an enjoyment. The living entity is the cause of all his sufferings and enjoyments because he has illicitly embraced Maya with the desire to predominate and enjoy independently of Krishna. So that is the clear point here, that why we suffer, because we want to enjoy separately from Krishna. And who is the cause of our suffering and happiness? We ourselves, ultimately. Of course, there are different factors. Yeah, the body is also the factor. Even the super soul is a factor because he is the Upadrasta and Anumanta. He is the seer and also sanction giver. Without his sanction, we cannot do anything. We cannot suffer. We cannot happy also. But the main factor is the living entity. Why? Because the living entity has independency, minute independency, and that is exhibited by the living entity by which we are happy and suffer accordingly. So don't blame anyone if we suffer. Don't blame Krishna if we suffer because we want it. Just like a child wanted to touch fire, the parent tells that no, 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 don't touch it. You will get burned. Because the stubborn nature of the child wanted to touch fire. Okay, I already told you the consequences. You get burned, but if you still want to touch fire, go for it. And then here we are. Yeah. Section number 22. Purusa prakriti sohi. This is a classic verse. Purusa prakriti sohi bhunte prakriti janguna. Karanam guna sangosya shad asadyo nijanmasya. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with the material nature, thus he meets with good and evil among various species. Yeah. Karanam guna sangasya. According to the mode of material nature that we associate with. So we get this sad and asad, happiness and distress, good and evil. Yeah. Yoni janmasya. We take birth in the species of animal, human being, demigods, depending on the modes of nature we are associating with. This verse is very important, Srila Prabhupada said, for an understanding of how the living entities transmigrate from one body to another. It is explained in the second chapter that the living entity is transmigrating from one body to another, just as one changes dress. Yeah, wasam sijirnani yatham. The living entity, if he submits to this hearing process, will lose his long cherished desire to dominate material nature, and gradually and proportionately, as he reduces his long desire to dominate, he comes to enjoy spiritual happiness. In the Vedic mantra, it is said that as he becomes learned in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he proportionately relishes his eternal blissful life. Yeah. So the process of hearing, Prabhupada mentioned here. Yeah. If he submits to this hearing process, hearing from a devotee, there's actually great hope for us here to reinstate our nature, our original position. Yeah. So according to the modes of nature that we associating with, so we get our next life accordingly. Yeah. Krishna is actually the only Purusha or predominating enjoyer. The Jiva, in contrast, as described in Bhagavad Gita 7.5, is his subordinate energy. Because of illusion, however, he is placed within the material energy, Purusha Prakriti Stohi, to imagine himself as Purusha. So we are not the enjoyer, but we are meant to be enjoyed by Krishna. Yeah. We are meant to be enjoyed. But why we have this tendency to enjoy? Because we inherit Krishna's nature. Yeah, we are part of Krishna. What time is it? Oh, we have only 1 minute. Yeah. We living entities, we are sometimes called Purusha because we artificially exhibit our propensity to enjoy this material world. So Purusha means the enjoyer. Therefore, sometimes we are called Purusha. Here, the living entities as a whole is called Purusha. Here, even the woman, she is also Purusha because some spirit, I shall enjoy my best capacity. Either man or woman. Therefore, she is also, in that sense, Purusha. She wants to enjoy, and the man also wants to enjoy. But both of them, Prakriti is star. We are under the control of this Prakriti. This is our position. We must understand our position. Unfortunately, there's no education, there's no knowledge about this throughout the whole. Yeah. Just like man, male is considered to be Purusha and female considered to be the Prakriti. But even Srila Prabhupada mentioned here, even the woman also sometimes exhibiting the nature of being Purusha, enjoyer. Yeah. Because of this tendency, I shall enjoy. Yeah. Just like the living entity also like that. We have this tendency of I shall enjoy, although by nature we are meant to be enjoyed. Um, just give me another 5 minutes, yeah, just to finish up this section about Prakriti, Purusha, and their union. Text number 23, just 3 more verses. Yeah, here it is. Upadrasam mantaja bhatta bhukta maheshwara. Paramat meti chapyukto dehesmin purusha paraha. Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter. Yeah, Upadrasa and Anumanta, and who is known as the super soul. Text number 24. One who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position. Yeah? The purpose of knowledge is to understand distinctly that the living entity has by chance fallen into this material existence. By his personal endeavor in association with authorities, saintly persons, and spiritual master, he has to understand his position and then revert to spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness by understanding Bhagavad Gita as it is explained by the personality of God. Prabhupada interestingly mentions here by chance. What does it mean by chance? That means nobody wants to suffer, right? But by chance, we fall down here in the material world. Therefore, one time Srila Prabhupada was asked, when is actually the living entity come in contact with the material nature? And Prabhupada said, there is no exact date when you can trace out which date of the year you came to the material world. Prabhupada said, that is not important. Just like how a person fall in a dark well. Yeah. It's not really important to trace out when he fell, how he fell. Most important thing is that how to get out. Prabhupada said there is no date in the history when you can see you fall down in the material world. Yeah. Therefore, Prabhupada mentioned here by chance, because no living entity actually, originally, no living entity want to suffer in this material world. Nobody. But due to our stubborn nature, ignorance, yeah, we want to enjoy separately from Krishna. Then Krishna sanctioned it. In that sense, it is called by chance because we don't want it. Yeah, we don't want it. Text 25. Some perceive the super soul within themselves through meditation, others through cultivation of knowledge, and still others through working without fruitive desires. Only the devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are best situated in spiritual understanding because they understand that beyond this material nature are the spiritual world and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is expanded as the Paramatma, the Super Soul in everyone, the all-pervading Godhead. So in this verse, it is described that different paths to perceive the spirit soul, the supreme soul, Lord Krishna, through meditation, through knowledge, jnana, through yoga, jnana, and through karma also. Working without fruitive desires means niskama karma. Text number 26. Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. This verse is particularly applicable to modern society because in the modern society there is practically no education in spiritual matters. As for common man, if he is a good soul, then there is a chance for advancement by hearing. Yeah. This process is very important. Lord Chaitanya, who preached Krishna consciousness in the modern world, gave great stress to hearing because if the common man simply hears from authoritative sources, he can progress, especially according to Lord Chaitanya. If he hears the transcendental vibration, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If one is fortunate enough to take shelter of a pure devotee, hear from him about self-realization and follow in his footsteps, one will be gradually elevated to the position of a pure devotee. In this verse, particularly, the process of hearing is strongly recommended. This is very appropriate, although the common man is often not as capable as so-called philosophers. Faithful hearing from an authoritative person will help one transcend this material existence and go back home, back to Godhead. Yeah. So it is our duty to preach, to broadcast the message Bhagavad Gita as far as possible. It is our duty. It is not that it is a formality. It is not formality. It is our duty. Okay. So up to this point, Krishna already answered all Arjuna's 6 questions. What are those 6 questions? Etc. Jnanam, Gyayam, Purusha, and Prakriti. Yeah. So throughout this discussion, we found Krishna answers and elaborate on how actually here in this section, Krishna mentioned about not only Purusha and Prakriti, but also their unity. When one surrenders to Krishna, that means the Purusha and Prakriti is uniting. That's how our journey back to Godhead is beginning. Yeah, therefore, hearing is start from hearing. How you can hear is by amanitva, humility. If you're not humble enough, you will not hear. Yeah, especially we have this tendency, oh, he's younger than me. He just joined many years after I joined. So who's giving class today? Depending on who's giving class today, you will attend the Bhagavatam class, right? But a person who really humble will always hear, doesn't matter from whom, because he sees the person who gives class is the representative of Srila Vyasadeva. Yeah? So hearing is the first thing, very important. Yeah, how to hear by humility, and that's our unity between the Purusha and Prakriti begins. Yeah? So all Arjuna 6 question answered. The last part of the chapter will discuss about the Jnana Chakshusha, how a person in real knowledge will see the world. Yeah. Okay, we'll see all of you again on Saturday. Same place, same time. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.